Before we dive deep into this powerful journey of betrayal, awakening, and triumph, take a moment to like, subscribe, share, and comment to support these inspiring true-life stories that remind us all, sometimes losing everything is exactly what sets us free. The moment I stepped into Victoria Sanders' office that Tuesday morning, I felt the shift in the air like a gathering storm. The mahogany door shut behind me with a soft but deliberate click, sealing me inside what would soon become the most pivotal conversation of my professional life. Victoria's gaze was cold, almost surgical, as she sat behind her imposing desk, polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting not just the morning sunlight, but also the weight of the accusation she was about to hurl at me. "I consider this disloyal," she began, her voice clipped and precise, like a knife slicing through the dense fog of uncertainty swirling in my head. I swallowed hard, gripping my purse tightly to steady my trembling hands. The summoning email I had received barely an hour ago gave me no clue as to why I was being called in. But as her words pierced the quiet, reality came crashing down like glass shattering across marble. "After everything Harbor Point Communications has done for you," she added, each word laced with manufactured disappointment. I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, to defend, but she silenced me with a simple, practiced motion. A tap of her manicured nail against a printed email laid before her, like evidence in a courtroom. "Don't bother denying it," she said, eyes narrowing. "I have confirmation you interviewed with North Bay Solutions last Thursday." She emphasized the date slowly, savoring every syllable. "You took a half-day for a dental appointment, I believe." A knot in my stomach pulled tighter, my breath slowed. In that instant, my years of service, loyalty, and sacrifice dissolved into nothing more than a line item on her desk. Let me pause here and properly introduce myself, because you deserve to know who I was before my world unraveled. My name is Addison Walker. I am 31 years old, and for 6 long, tireless years, I dedicated every ounce of my professional being to Harbor Point Communications here in Spokane, Washington. I had arrived bright-eyed and eager, fresh out of grad school, and through sheer grit, I climbed the corporate ladder, from coffee runs and note-taking to managing our largest, most lucrative accounts. I trickled my client portfolio, brought millions in revenue, and built relationships that would come to define the company's success. But none of that mattered now. Not to Victoria. Not as she slid my company ID across her desk with a motion that felt as final as a judge's gavel. "Security will meet you at your desk," she continued, her voice absent of empathy. "You can collect your personal belongings. Your building access has been revoked immediately. I've already disabled your email." My head spun. Rage burned hot in my chest, but I forced myself to inhale deeply, steadying my voice before I spoke. "I understand," I said, standing as tall as I could, straightening my blazer, my armor. Victoria blinked, almost disoriented by my composure. She had expected tears, desperation, maybe even begging, but I gave her none of it. Instead, I extended my hand. "I wish you and Harbor Point continued success." Her hesitation was brief, but revealing. She shook my hand, though her confusion hung heavy in the silence between us. As I left her office, security trailing behind like silent shadows, I kept my head high. My colleagues watched from their desks, eyes wide with curiosity, sympathy, and fear. I smiled softly at them, a signal that there would be no scene, no meltdown. Only grace, only dignity. The sun was warm as I stepped through the glass doors and into the April morning. For the first time in 6 years, I was free. Victoria thought she had stripped me of everything. But what she didn't know was that she had just set me free to rewrite my story. As I gently lowered my small cardboard box into the trunk of my car, 6 years of my life, now reduced to framed photos, a few desk plants, and sentimental trinkets, my phone buzzed. It was a message from David Kleen, the CEO of North Bay Solutions. "Can we move our final discussion to today, 2 p.m.? I smiled for the first time that day. Victoria had no idea what was coming. As I guided my car through the familiar streets of Spokane, I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, not for traffic, but for the reflection of my own face. It was strange, almost surreal, to see myself like this. Not as Addison Walker, senior account manager at Harbor Point Communications, but simply as Addison, untethered, between chapters. The cardboard box shifted slightly in the trunk as I made a sharp turn, its contents sliding against one another. Photo frames clinking softly like delicate echoes of the life I was leaving behind. It was amazing how 6 years of dedication, sacrifice, and late nights could fit neatly into one small box. I drove in silence, letting my mind wander through the memories that brought me here. When I first walked into Harbor Point's beige, uninspiring lobby as a fresh graduate, I never imagined how deeply I would invest myself in that company. With a marketing degree from Washington State University, I had entered the corporate world eager and ready to prove myself. My first tasks were menial: coffee runs, organizing meeting notes, color-coding presentations that no one would read past the first slide. But I didn't complain. I stayed late, asked for more responsibility, and took on the tasks no one else wanted. When difficult clients frustrated my coworkers, I saw opportunity. I became known for handling the accounts others labeled as too demanding or impossible to please. And slowly, quietly, I climbed. Within 2 years, I was managing mid-tier accounts. By year 4, I landed the crown jewel of Harbor Point, North Bay Solutions. That relationship had changed everything. It was David Kleen himself who had personally requested me after I stepped in to salvage a collapsing campaign when their previous account manager fumbled. "You're the only one who seems to understand what we need before we even ask," David had told me. From that moment forward, North Bay flourished under my care. Contracts were extended, marketing budgets doubled, and Harbor Point celebrated record profits, largely because of the relationship I had painstakingly built. Victoria, at the time, had praised me. "This is the kind of initiative we value," she said with her polished corporate smile. But that value never found its way to my paycheck. The first time I requested a raise, I arrived prepared. Spreadsheets, performance reports, market salary comparisons. Every argument carefully laid out. Victoria met me with a rehearsed sigh, hands folded across her desk. "It's just not in the budget this year," she said. "But your contribution is noted." I accepted her answer then. The economy was unstable, I was still young, and I convinced myself that patience would eventually bring reward. The second request came a year later, after I brought in 3 major clients and won an industry award for one of my campaigns. The answer was the same. "Next year will be better," she promised. "We just need to tighten our belts a little longer." Meanwhile, Victoria's luxury SUV gleamed in the company parking lot. The office expanded, taking on an entire additional floor. Bonuses were generously handed out, just not to me. By the third denial, I felt something inside me snap. It wasn't anger at first, it was clarity. After negotiating a 40% increase in North Bay's annual contract, I once again sat across from Victoria, hoping for a different outcome. Your performance is exceptional, she said, but we're investing in infrastructure this year. Perhaps we can revisit this in the summer. That night, for the first time in 6 years, I opened my long-forgotten resume and quietly updated it. I wasn't acting out of spite. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was simply reclaiming the self-worth I had allowed this company to erode year after year. I knew my value. Harbor Point simply refused to see it. But I never imagined Victoria would uncover my job search before I could leave on my own terms. As I pulled into my driveway, I sat still for a moment, gripping the steering wheel as a wave of emotion pressed against my chest. The quiet of my home greeted me like a hollow cavern as I carried the cardboard box inside and set it on my kitchen counter. For a moment, I simply stared at it. The box, my 6 years. I wasn't just between meetings. I wasn't just taking a personal day. I was unemployed. The word carried a bitter weight I wasn't ready to hold. And then my phone rang. It was Olivia, my best friend, my anchor. "I just heard," she said urgently. "Thomas texted me. Are you okay?" Thomas worked in Harbor Point's IT department and was also Olivia's boyfriend. News had traveled fast. "I'm processing," I whispered, sinking onto a kitchen stool. It all happened so quickly. "It's completely unfair," Olivia snapped, her voice rising. "Everyone knows you're the only reason North Bay stayed with Harbor Point this long. Victoria's just scared because you're better at the job than she ever was." There was truth in her words. Victoria had once been the company's prized account executive before she was promoted into management. Many of us suspected she missed the client glory and often inserted herself unnecessarily into my North Bay meetings. "The worst part is how she did it," I said softly, like I committed some kind of corporate treason for simply looking after my own career. "It's her loss, Addison. Honestly, maybe it's for the best. You've been undervalued there for years." She was right. I had stayed far longer than I should have, out of loyalty to my clients and colleagues. But that loyalty was never returned. My phone buzzed again, an incoming call. I glanced at the screen. David Clean. "Olivia, I need to take this," I said. "It's North Bay." "Go, call me after," she replied. I took a deep breath, pressed accept, and raised the phone to my ear. "Addison, I just heard what happened," David said, skipping pleasantries. His voice was calm but direct. "Are you available to come in today? I'd like to accelerate our conversation." My heart raced. "Yes, I can be there at 2 p.m., as you suggested." "Excellent. And Addison, don't worry about what happened this morning. Sometimes these things have a way of working out for the best." As we hung up, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. Eyes steeled, posture steady. I wasn't broken. I was being set free. The afternoon light shimmered across the glass towers of downtown Spokane as I pulled into the parking structure beneath North Bay Solutions headquarters. The building stood tall and sleek, 3 entire floors of pristine glass and polished steel, a sharp contrast to Harbor Point's aging beige walls and fluorescent-lit corridors. It was more than just architecture. It was a symbol of everything I had been working toward, but never quite grasped. As I rode the elevator to the 30th floor, my nerves threatened to betray my outward calm. My thoughts raced in competing currents. The humiliation of my morning dismissal, the conversation with David, the unknowns of what waited for me behind those stainless steel doors. But above it all, one truth anchored me. This was my moment. The doors slid open, and there he stood, David Clean, waiting for me in the reception area like an unexpected lighthouse cutting through the storm. "Addison," he greeted warmly, extending his hand with a genuine smile that eased my trembling heart. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." I returned his firm handshake. "I appreciate the opportunity, David. It's been an unexpected day." He gave a small nod, understanding the loaded subtext behind my polite words. "Let's talk in my office." As we walked through the open concept workspace, I noticed familiar faces from my previous meetings. Several employees nodded or waved as we passed. Their recognition felt oddly comforting, as if my presence here was already something more than temporary. David's office was nothing like Victoria's cold throne room. It was human. Warm lighting, comfortable seating arranged for open dialogue rather than power plays, and windows that offered breathtaking views of the distant mountains instead of stale concrete parking lots. We each sipped quietly for a moment before David leaned forward, his tone shifting to something more deliberate. "I received a call from Victoria Sanders this morning." My stomach tightened instinctively. Of course she called him. She wouldn't go quietly into this storm. "She informed me," he continued, "that you would no longer be managing the North Bay account, that she would personally oversee our partnership until a replacement was assigned." I nodded, but kept my expression neutral, even as indignation burned beneath my skin. Victoria was grasping, trying to secure the one client she could not afford to lose. "What she doesn't know," David said, his eyes locking with mine, "is that we were already growing concerned about our relationship with Harbor Point." That startled me. "Concerned?" David gave a small sigh. "The campaign results have been excellent because of you. But we've observed delays in responses, inconsistencies in deliverables, and frankly, a sense that Harbor Point has been taking our business for granted. The only constant was you." He paused, his words heavy with unspoken meaning. 3 months ago, our board began discussing other marketing partners. I resisted because of our relationship with you, Addison. You have consistently demonstrated an understanding of our business that goes beyond what any agency contract requires. I swallowed hard. My mind was racing now. Was this truly happening? "When you reached out about potential opportunities here," he continued, "it felt like perfect timing. But I want to be clear. We were never trying to poach you. We respect professional boundaries." "I was planning to give proper notice," I said softly, wanting him to know my integrity mattered. "I believe you," David replied sincerely. "Your professionalism is one of the reasons we're having this conversation now." Victoria's abrupt decision simply accelerated the process. He reached over to the side table and picked up a folder, placing it gently between us. "This isn't an interview, Addison," he said with a calm certainty that made my pulse quicken. "It's a job offer." I opened the folder, my eyes scanning the document. Director of Client Strategy. The title alone took my breath for a moment, but then I saw the salary figure. Nearly double my Harbor Point salary. More than I had ever dared request in those agonizing annual reviews. I looked up, stunned. "David, this is incredibly generous." "It's market rate," he corrected gently. "For someone with your experience and results. Sometimes it takes stepping away from a toxic situation to realize your true worth." For a brief moment, emotion caught in my throat. I had worked so hard for so long, waiting for someone to see me, and here it was, offered freely, without begging, without justifications, without compromise. "I would like to take the night to review everything thoroughly," I managed to say, steadying my voice. "But I'm honored." Of course, I expected nothing less. He smiled. "Take your time. But if I may, welcome to North Bay Solutions." As I drove home, my mind buzzed with a strange mixture of exhilaration and disbelief. The offer letter sat on my kitchen table as the late afternoon sun bathed the room in gold. My phone lit up again, this time with a text from Thomas. Victoria called an emergency meeting after you left. Told everyone you were terminated for breach of loyalty. Said Harbor Point rewards loyalty above all. The irony of her statement stung. Loyalty. The very currency I had invested for 6 years. Receiving empty promises in return. Another text arrived. Jessica, the receptionist. She's been locked in her office making calls all afternoon. Looks stressed. Guess someone's worried about North Bay. I didn't respond. There was no satisfaction in Victoria's distress. No vindication in her unraveling. What I felt was clarity, sharp and clean. That company never deserved my loyalty. My phone rang again, an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Addison Walker? Speaking. This is Elaine Winters. I'm on the board at Harbor Point Communications. My breath caught. Board members rarely got involved at the employee level. Whatever this was, it wasn't routine. I'll understand there was an incident today regarding your employment, she continued, her tone measured and authoritative. I'd like to meet with you tomorrow morning to discuss it. Victoria may have been hasty in her decision. Of course. Damage control. I appreciate the call, Miss Winters, but I've already accepted another position. May I ask where? I don't think that would be appropriate to share at this time. There was a pause. Addison, if this is about compensation, I'm sure we can revisit those conversations. The board values your contributions. It was almost laughable. After 3 years of stonewalling, suddenly I was valuable. It's not just about compensation, I replied, my voice steady. It's about respect. About recognizing someone's worth before they're driven to seek it elsewhere. Another pause. Perhaps we could discuss this further in person. Tomorrow morning? I considered for a moment. I had no intention of returning, but closure, professional closure, might serve a purpose. I can meet at 9. Very good, I'll see you then. As I hung up, I stepped onto my balcony, wine glass in hand, breathing in the cool spring evening. The city lights twinkled below like a distant constellation. Tomorrow would bring an unexpected meeting, but I was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. Because tomorrow, for the first time in years, I would walk into Harbor Point on my own terms. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. My body, still buzzing from the emotional whiplash of the previous 24 hours, refused to allow me the comfort of extra sleep. I stood before my closet for several minutes, considering carefully what to wear. Not for them, but for myself. I chose the navy suit. Sharp, elegant, unapologetically professional. This meeting would not be about groveling or negotiations. It was about dignity, closure. I applied my makeup with steady hands, fixing my hair into a simple, precise twist. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the Addison who had been dismissed and humiliated. I saw the Addison who had survived. The drive to Harbor Point felt surreal. Pulling into the familiar parking structure, scanning my visitor pass instead of my old keycard. Walking through the lobby where I once greeted coworkers with routine small talk. It was like stepping into a memory frozen in time. As I approached the front desk, Jessica, Harbor Point's receptionist, looked up. Her eyes widened for a moment before she quickly masked her surprise with a polite smile. Addison, you're here for the meeting with Miss Winters? She asked softly. That's right, I replied, signing the visitor log. Jessica glanced around the empty lobby, then leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. For what it's worth, everyone's talking about how wrong this was. You were the best of us. Her quiet sincerity wrapped around me like a small, unexpected gift. Thank you, Jessica. That means more than you know. She smiled sadly before motioning toward the elevators. Conference room B. She's waiting for you. The ride up felt longer than usual, even though it was only 7 floors. I took a deep breath as the doors opened. This time, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. Inside the conference room, Elaine Winters stood as I entered. She extended her hand, her expression gracious yet carefully composed. In her early 60s, with silver hair swept back into a smooth bob, Elaine carried herself with the controlled authority of someone accustomed to high-stakes boardrooms. "Ms. Walker, thank you for coming," she said. "Please, have a seat." I sat, my posture straight but not rigid. Calm. Centered. Elaine opened a slim folder in front of her, glancing briefly at the contents before speaking. "I've reviewed your personnel file," she began. 6 years of exemplary performance. Outstanding client retention. 3 formal requests for salary adjustment. All denied. Her eyes lifted to meet mine. I was not aware of this pattern. That admission surprised me. I had always assumed Victoria's decisions were sanctioned at the board level. I thought major compensation adjustments required board approval. I said, keeping my tone neutral. For significant increases, yes, but management retains discretion within established parameters, she clarified. It appears Victoria has exercised considerable autonomy in recent years. Her tone suggested professional displeasure, though she remained composed. "What I also don't see," Elaine continued, tapping the open folder, "is any documentation justifying your termination. There is no policy prohibiting interviews outside of working hours." She paused. The word Victoria used was disloyal. I held her gaze. "That's correct." Elaine's brow arched slightly. "An interesting choice, given the circumstances." She closed the folder gently and folded her hands on the table. The conversation shifted, sharpened. "Ms. Walker, I'll be direct. The board would like to offer you reinstatement with the compensation adjustment you requested in your last review, plus an additional 10% increase. Your title would be Senior Account Director with expanded responsibilities." There it was, the offer I had begged for, pleaded for, now dangled in front of me like a lifeline I no longer needed. I nodded respectfully. "That's a generous offer. But as I mentioned on the phone, I've already accepted a position elsewhere." Elaine studied me for a long moment. Her gaze wasn't unkind, but assessing, measuring my resolve. "At North Bay Solutions," she stated. It was not a question. I didn't confirm or deny. I didn't need to. "My new role begins Monday." Elaine's voice lowered, shifting from formality to candid pragmatism. "Victoria is concerned that North Bay may reconsider their relationship with Harbor Point in light of your departure." Of course. The truth beneath the entire meeting finally surfaced. This wasn't about me. This was about the revenue. Nearly 30% of Harbor Point's annual income sat in that one contract. My departure wasn't just a personnel loss. It was a financial crisis. "That would be a question for North Bay," I said carefully. Elaine nodded, seemingly satisfied by my discretion. She exhaled quietly, as if releasing some unspoken weight. "May I ask one final question, Ms. Walker?" "Of course." "What could Harbor Point have done differently to retain you?" The simplicity of the question nearly caught me off guard, but I knew my answer immediately. "Recognize my value before I had to go elsewhere to find it," I replied softly. "Loyalty works both ways, Ms. Winters." Harbor Point expected unwavering commitment, while repeatedly demonstrating I wasn't worth investing in. That imbalance became unsustainable. Elaine nodded slowly, as if absorbing the depth of my words. A fair assessment, she said at last. Then she stood, extending her hand once more. Thank you for your candor. Whatever your next steps, I wish you success. As I rose and shook her hand, I felt something shift inside me. Lighter, freer. The door closed behind me as I exited the conference room, but symbolically, another door swung wide open. For the second and final time, I walked out of Harbor Point, not as someone dismissed or defeated, but as someone who had reclaimed her narrative. The chapter was closed. Entirely. On my terms. Monday morning arrived draped in golden light, as if the city itself understood I was beginning a new chapter. I stood before North Bay Solutions' towering glass building, this time not as a visitor, not as an outsider hoping for a meeting, but as an executive ready to lead. I had arrived early, my nerves humming not with fear, but with anticipation. The weight that had once pressed so heavily on my chest was gone. In its place was something lighter, sharper, confidence. Inside, everything had been meticulously prepared. A polished nameplate already sat upon my desk. Addison Walker, Director of Client Strategy. My office, an actual office with windows and a door, overlooked the city skyline. The sun bathed the room in warmth as I carefully unpacked a few personal items. Framed photos, a small potted plant, and the same motivational quote I had once displayed at Harbor Point. Know your worth, then add tax. At precisely 9 o'clock, David knocked gently on my open door, his expression warm and steady. Morning, Addison. Welcome officially. Good morning, David. My voice carried steady confidence. It feels good to finally be here. He gestured toward the hallway. Come meet your team. I followed him into a large, sunlit conference room where 5 team members waited, each smiling with genuine curiosity and openness. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical meetings at Harbor Point, this felt collaborative from the start. Everyone, this is Addison Walker, David announced, our new Director of Client Strategy. Many of you already know her from her outstanding work managing our account at Harbor Point. We're extremely fortunate to have her expertise on board. Each of them introduced themselves in turn. Marketing specialists, analysts, digital strategists, talented professionals who were eager not just to follow, but to build something new together. We spent the next hour discussing upcoming projects, team goals, and North Bay's evolving client partnerships. The tone was optimistic, energized. For the first time in years, I wasn't fighting for recognition. I was trusted to lead. As the team dispersed, David motioned for me to join him in the executive conference room. Inside, several senior leaders from North Bay's board were gathered. The CFO, the Chief Marketing Officer, the Chief Operating Officer. Their presence was not intimidating. Instead, it felt like an invitation. Before you dive too deeply, David began, we wanted your perspective on an important matter. The CFO spoke next, his tone professional, but unmistakably curious. As you know, in light of recent events, we're reevaluating our contract with Harbor Point. Their renewal is scheduled for next month. The Chief Marketing Officer leaned in slightly. We value your perspective, Addison. You've worked directly with both teams. You understand the nuances better than anyone. Your insight will carry significant weight. I knew exactly where this was going. The opportunity to cut ties with Harbor Point was sitting on the table, and they were offering me the knife. A part of me, the part still stung by Victoria's betrayal, wanted to sever that relationship swiftly, decisively. I could almost picture the fallout. The panic in Victoria's office, the emergency meetings, the desperate phone calls to salvage what couldn't be salvaged. But another part of me, the stronger part, understood something deeper. Revenge might feel good for a moment, but professionalism would serve me for a lifetime. I chose my words with care. I believe we should evaluate Harper Point on the same criteria we apply to any agency partner, I said. Their work has been strong in many respects, but consistency, accountability, and client service must remain top priorities. If those standards aren't met, then we should pursue alternatives. The room nodded collectively. David's eyes met mine, filled with quiet approval. Professional, measured, unshakable. By Wednesday morning, exactly 1 week after Victoria fired me, the decision had been finalized. North Bay Solutions would transition their account to Meridian Creative, one of the competing agencies that had quietly submitted proposals during the evaluation process. David gave me the courtesy of reviewing the email before it was officially sent. After careful consideration of our marketing needs moving forward, North Bay Solutions has decided to transition our account to Meridian Creative, effective immediately. This decision reflects our evolving brand strategy and digital requirements. Addison Walker, our new Director of Client Strategy, will oversee the transition and serve as your point of contact. We appreciate our partnership and request all materials be transferred by end of business Friday. I read it twice, feeling the full weight of what this would mean for Harper Point, for Victoria. North Bay represented nearly 30% of their annual revenue. My departure had left a hole. This decision would widen it into a chasm. Yet I felt no guilt, no satisfaction, only clarity. The perfect revenge had arrived, not by design, but by consequence. Harper Point had sown these seeds long ago. That afternoon, as I settled into my new office, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. A connection request from Jessica, Harper Point's receptionist. I accepted. A moment later, her private message arrived. The office is chaos. Victoria's been in emergency meetings all day. 3 other account managers have updated their resumes. Karma works fast. I stared at the message for a moment, contemplating how I should respond. I could have written something petty or triumphant, but that wasn't who I was. Not anymore. Instead, I simply typed, "Thank you for your kindness during my time at Harper Point. Wishing you all the best." Taking the high road felt better than I expected. Cleaner, more powerful. My focus shifted fully to my new role. Building the team, nurturing partnerships, designing strategies that would elevate North Bay's brand and solidify our market presence. Every day brought new challenges, but they were mine to conquer, not someone else's agenda to serve. Success, after all, was the best revenge. The seasons rolled forward, each one shedding the remnants of my old life like autumn leaves swirling in the wind. What once felt like a devastating collapse had, over time, revealed itself as one of life's rare and precious turning points, a hidden blessing wrapped inside loss. A full year had passed since I walked out of Harper Point for the final time. 12 months since I was escorted to my desk like a criminal. 12 months since I packed 6 years of demotion into a cardboard box. And in those 12 months, everything changed. The Addison, who now sat in her corner office at North Bay Solutions, was not the woman who once begged quietly for recognition. She was not the woman who rationalized broken promises or clung to the hollow hope that loyalty would one day be rewarded if she simply waited long enough. She was something new, something sharpened by experience, but softened by grace, stronger, wiser, at peace. From my office window, I could see the city stretch out beneath me. its skyline gleaming beneath the pale morning sun. The world outside was busy, pulsing with motion and ambition. But inside this room, I allowed myself a quiet moment of reflection. The year had been one of tremendous growth, not just professionally, but personally. Under my leadership, North Bay's marketing partnerships flourished. We built streamlined vendor relationships, launched 3 award-winning campaigns, expanded into new digital markets, and nearly doubled our audience engagement metrics. My team grew, not just in size, but in capability, becoming one of the company's strongest pillars. I no longer waited to be seen. I led. David's trust in me from day one had allowed me to step into my full capacity without hesitation. And in return, I gave North Bay everything Harbor Point never truly allowed me to give. Not because I was loyal to the company, but because I was loyal to myself. And that made all the difference. Occasionally, whispers of Harbor Point still reached me. Thomas would share updates through Olivia when we caught up for brunch. Small murmurs of office chaos, of account managers fleeing, of Victoria scrambling to stabilize what was quickly becoming unsalvageable. Jessica messaged me once more several months after I left. Victoria resigned last week. The board forced it. They're restructuring now. Lots of changes. I read her message and simply smiled, replying with a short but sincere note. Wishing everyone the best as you move forward. Change can be a gift. I meant it. Even for Victoria. It no longer served me to harbor bitterness. She had been both my greatest obstacle and, inadvertently, my greatest catalyst. Had she not fired me that morning, had she not forced my hand, I might have stayed another year, maybe 2. Trapped in the endless cycle of hoping for what would never come. In her short-sighted power play, she set me free. Sometimes, people push you, not because they want what's best for you, but because they fear your potential. Because they see what you have the power to become, and they know they can no longer contain it. That is their failure, but it can become your opportunity. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, my 1-year anniversary at North Bay. A soft knock came at my office door. It was David, smiling warmly as always. "Happy anniversary, Addison," he said as he stepped inside. "Thank you," I smiled, setting down my mug. "We're lucky to have you," he continued. "The board wanted me to share that, officially. You've elevated this department in ways we couldn't have predicted." "I appreciate that," I replied. "Truly." He hesitated for a moment before adding, "You know, I still think about how everything unfolded last year. Strange how some of the worst moments bring us exactly where we're supposed to be." I nodded, the truth of his words washing over me. "It's funny," I said softly. "I thought I lost everything that day. But in reality, it was the day I finally stepped into who I was always meant to be." David smiled. "Well said." As he left my office, I turned back toward the window, gazing out across a city that had once felt so overwhelming, but now felt entirely mine. In the end, I didn't need to destroy anyone to rise. I didn't